Here we go.
Live from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, welcome to the 63rd edition of the Confirmed Epic Podcast, the official podcast of the epicreview.com, and proudly presented by the GWW, that's the Geeks Worldwide Radio Network. I, of course, am one of your hosts, the real Brad Bell, and joining me today is the co-founder of the epicreview.com, the one, the only, Andrew Stokes, more notably known as
Andrew Stokes.
And if Andrew and I sound a little upset today, Donald Trump just pulled out of the Paris climate deal literally minutes before we came on the air this afternoon. Mm-hmm. And since he is a socialist Marxist and I consider myself a liberal Democrat, we may be a little upset today. Obviously, I'm being a little exaggerated calling you a Marxist because you definitely are, Andrew. It's just there's this kind of stereotype in not just people who do podcasting, people that write for the film industry, people that even do fan podcasts, the video game industry, notably with Colin Moriarty leaving Kind of Funny, that a lot of people who cover media, even for fun, kind of like we do, tend to lean to the left.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case?
You think of artsy type as more liberal, I feel like, and that's obviously what attracts a lot of people, whether they're involved with making these things or just enjoying them.
Exactly. And we will try to not let that news upset us too much because we want to stay sharp, because we are reviewing, finally, it's been long awaited, James Mangold's Logan, which released on Blu-ray and DVD and 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray if you have a 4K TV this past Tuesday. So since we missed the review first time around, it came out March 3rd, which was actually my birthday. Since we missed it then, we figured we would wrap back around and cover it for its home video release. Andrew Stokes, let's go ahead and get the show started. My friend, what have you been checking out this week?
Check checklist? Check. Double check checking of checklist? Check.
Yeah, well, I had a long weekend this week, and so I haven't been checking out anything much like movies or anything. I've just been doing a lot of things. Most of my long weekend was spent with a couple friends' wedding that I went to. So shout out to Jacob and Susan for getting married. They're down in Florida right now, having a good time on their honeymoon.
Did you rewatch Wedding Crashers to prepare for the ceremony?
I joked that I watched Wedding Crashers so I could figure out who was there crashing weddings, and I made a couple jokes.
That's one of your favorite movies. So.
I do like Wedding Crashers. It's a good movie. I need to rewatch it. I haven't watched it forever. But no, it was a really good time. The whole kind of weekend associated with that, with the rehearsal dinner, seeing some of his friends and family and stuff that I don't normally get to see or have never met before. It was a lot of fun. The ceremony itself was really fun. It was a good time. So.
And it was Memorial Day weekend, so it was a long weekend. You had a crazy epic weekend. Right. So what else was in store for you?
Well, I also went to the Coca-Cola 600.
Wow.
Which was
with Dusty Mode.
Dusty Mode. It's the first time I've ever been to any sort of NASCAR race or any sort of motor race. I guess I've been to a demolition derby one time. So that was a lot of fun. I'm not a big NASCAR fan, as you know, but Dusty's been trying to get me to go for quite some time, and he got free tickets. It's a big event, you know what I mean? Lynyrd Skynyrd was there, Channing Tatum was there, so it was just a cool experience, and I got into it, you know what I mean? I really enjoyed watching it.
And you got to see Austin Dillon, who drives the number 3 car, formerly of Dale Earnhardt. Its number, of course, very famous number, get his first victory in the Coca-Cola 600.
Yep.
It's a big deal for Charlotte because you have the race weekends. The weekend before you have the All-Star race. That's what I've been to. I've been to the All-Star race twice. Okay. I went to the Coke 600 once. It got rained out. Moved to Monday. We didn't go back. Y'all dealt with some rain.
We got rained out for a little while. They actually stopped the race, and we had to take shelter or whatever. But it was fine. It actually helped. I was afraid the day was going to be too hot, and I think the cloud coverage and then the wind associated with these storms really kind of helped to keep things cool. So we were there. The race didn't end until a little bit after midnight, though, so we were there for quite some time. But
what time did you get home?
It was pushing 3 o'clock by the time I got home.
And then you went home and immediately watched Logan to start prepping for this podcast, right?
I went to bed and I got up, and the next day I went to Monday Night Raw in Greenville, South Carolina.
Talk about a redneck sporting weekend.
Oh, yeah.
How was that? You were on TV.
I was on TV a
couple
lot.
of times.
If you've watched that episode of Raw, or you want to go check it out on Hulu or even on the WWE's YouTube page. Myself, I'm on there a lot. I'm next to Barbecue 17. He's to my right, and we have a couple more friends to his right. There's actually the opening segment with Miz and Sheamus and Cesaro. They actually cut to my section because we're sitting there doing this. There's this hand motion that the Hardys do, and me and some people around us were doing it. And they actually cut to us doing the hand motion stuff. So you can check out that clip on YouTube. Like I said, watch the show. We're on there, yeah, a good bit. It was really cool.
So y'all enjoyed the Raw?
Very much so, yeah. Our friend Bradley and Joey were with us, and it was Bradley's first ever show like that.
Bradley Thurkill?
Oh,
yeah. Lord.
Oh,
He
yeah.
must have been in heaven seeing this show.
He was a little nervous at first when we first got there, big crowds and such. But he really got into it as it went on. So did Joey. Like I said, it was his first show as well. So it was a lot of fun. The crowd around us was really good. Got to see some superstars I've never seen before. So,
what was your favorite moment of the event besides being on TV? Because you didn't know until you got back.
Well, I knew that we'd be on there some, just the way we were sitting. We'd be in the background. I didn't realize quite how well we were because I've been to a SmackDown show in Greenville as well, and we were on there a good bit, but we were a little bit closer that time. The main event was probably pretty cool because the crowd was really into it. So that was everybody for the most part really hated the. Well, they're both supposed to be good guys. It's Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, but Roman
formerly
Reigns
of Shield,
right? And there was a one-on-one between those two, and it was a good match. The crowd was really into it. They really hated on Roman, and was really cheering for Seth Rollins.
Somebody who's never been to a live WWE event. I've been to one. I went to a pay-per-view in 2006. I think.
Wow.
It may have been, I don't know if it was back. It was No Way Out, I believe. Okay. No Way Out's the one I saw. The main event was Rob Van Dam versus Cena for the WWE Championship. So I think it was 06. I enjoyed it. These events are top-notch. It's a great experience. Is it something you would recommend?
If you're into it, obviously, if you don't like wrestling, a lot of that I don't think is going to sway you. But it's so cool.
And a Raw is different from a pay-per-view because you got a lot of TV timeouts and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Did you feel that as you were watching the show?
Yeah. They even show commercials for other WWE products during those TV timeouts. Sometimes, matches today, I feel like this is something that didn't happen back in the day, but matches will get interrupted. Not interrupted, but they'll cut to commercial in the middle of a match. When you're watching on TV, they'll cut to a commercial.
I hate that.
So if you're there watching it live, it's still going on for you, for the crowd there. So that's pretty cool.
I don't get into wrestling much anymore. Obviously, when we were in middle school, it was the Attitude Era. It was the Monday Night Wars. Mm-hmm. I was always partial to WCW. I saw Thunder. I saw Nitro. I mentioned the pay-per-view event I went to. I don't think I ever went to a WCW pay-per-view. Probably the most memorable one I have was a Nitro in which Sting fought Ric Flair for the world title. But one of the coolest moments I had, I was at a house show. You remember Sid Vicious?
Yeah.
Psycho Sid, whatever his name was. He was the champion, the WCW champion at the time, one of the few shows before they completely tanked. Yeah. But I was sitting in the front row, actually, ringside, had awesome seats. He came up and gave me a fist bump. You're in 7th grade, you're into wrestling. Yeah. That was a really cool thing. Sure. So I'm not into it as much anymore. I know you guys have big get-togethers with the WWE Network. And
watch these bi-weekly pay-per-views.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a bit much. To be honest. I enjoy getting together, but these... the brand split, I guess it kind of works. It's not like they have 2 weeks of storylines and they go to another pay-per-view because, each brand, the Raw and SmackDown brand, each have about a month to gestate before the next one. But
so while you were spending quality time amongst friends, I was buying high-end electronics to enjoy in solace.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Well, this past weekend, Abby and I got a message from somebody on Craigslist. And I had listed...
That sounds like the beginning of an awful story.
It did. It really did. And it got kind of fishy. This is pretty sprawling story here.
I'm interested to see where the cops arrive.
This is a real Brad Bell story, if there ever was one, right here. My experience with consumer electronics, in the end, it's ultimately good, but the journey to get what I want, for whatever reason, it just seems rather difficult. So it's Memorial Day weekend. There's a lot of sales going on, not just at electronic stores. I mean, around America, you can find some decent deals. Not like Super Bowl Sunday deals or Black Friday deals, but something fairly decent. So I had that in mind. I had an LG 4K TV. It was right before they did HDR. Got it on sale. Bought it with my tax return last year. Then all of a sudden, here comes HDR. For those of you that don't know, HDR stands for High Dynamic Range. And basically, for movies, with gaming, you could speak more on this because you're definitely more of a gaming person than I am. It makes the colors pop a lot more. It makes them more realistic. It helps with motion and things of that nature. Is that kind of similar to how HDR benefits games based on your understanding?
Yeah, based on my understanding of it. It's a little confusing because certain systems just don't output to 4K to certain systems. I think one uses HDR, one doesn't, or something like that. It's unfortunately confusing for consumers. It's not something that I've looked into because I'm not in the market for a 4K TV right now.
Too bad. I could have sold you one, buddy, but it wouldn't have had HDR.
Well, see, I would definitely. I'm to the point now where I definitely know I'm going to get a TV. If I were to get one today, I'd get one with HDR just because that's what some things use, and I want to, be able to use everything. And
most people that are buying TVs now, that's what they want. So that's why I knew that I was going to have kind of a hard time getting rid of my LG 4K non-HDR TV. So I put it on Craigslist. I asked $400. Took about a week. I got a response. The guy's like, I want it. I said, okay, I want to meet you somewhere neutral. How about we meet in the Best Buy parking lot? I'll give you the TV. He's like, I want to see it work. If it works, I want to come to your house. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't really feel comfortable with that. I don't know who you are at all. I said, I'd be willing to do a FaceTime and show you that the TV works, or a Skype or a Google Hangout. I offered a fair amount of video chat options. And all of a sudden, he's like, he gave me his number. We began texting instead of emailing, and he was very responsive until I said that. Yeah. And then he ghosted me, man. Wow. And finally, I kept saying, question, being the impatient seller that I am. Yeah. And he said, I have no interest in the TV at this time, Brad. I'm like, what did this guy have in mind for me? It's kind of... I understand you want to see the TV working, but if you're getting a killer deal and it's on Craigslist, I mean, you got to make some concessions.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, he's
very interesting.
He's at home right now doing his own podcast about this guy, Brad. Oh, he wouldn't let me see the TV. He's going to show me some other TV for sure in their FaceTime.
I mean, it would have been pretty obvious that it was the same TV.
Sure.
If I'd have been like, no, I'm not willing to meet you halfway at all and show you the TV works, I understand that. So... he ghosts me, and I get the thing, who can I sell this TV to? I started to call you, but I knew you were busy, one. Yeah. Number two, I knew with the HDR
Dang, so I missed
stuff.
out on a 4K TV this weekend.
It was a good deal.
How much are you selling it for?
I was selling it for $400, 55-inch LG 4K TV.
It's good.
And so I messaged my brother-in-law. He just got a new job. I wasn't wanting to ask him to buy it right out of college because he was a temp for a while, but they hired him on full-time. So I messaged him. I talked to Gray, my brother-in-law. I was like, would you be interested in this TV? I said, I'll give you a family discount, $350. He's like, all right, sure, I'll take it. I immediately used this as an excuse to go buy even better TV.
I'm pretty sure we had a conversation like a day or two before this. We were like, oh, well, one day I'll get a new TV. Not anytime soon, but one day. Maybe when this TV breaks. And then 2 days later, you're selling this TV to buy a new TV.
Well, I bought the Samsung 4K Blu-ray player, and I actually watched some scenes from Logan on it, and it looked good on non-HDR. You could tell a difference. Yeah. Not the difference that you would later tell in HDR, but still... I just started reading. I joined a Facebook group called Home Theater Enthusiast, which was one of the worst things I could have done.
I'm surprised you weren't already a member of this group.
Me too. That's my long-lost Facebook group. That and Mondo Trader is now my two favorite Facebook groups. But people, they were uploading these HDR images of the Wall, which is I want to say Jason Bourne, the Matt Damon movie. which was somewhat...
Oh, that movie.
Yeah, it was
so
somewhat racially insensitive.
Is that called The Wall?
I think it's called The Great Wall or The Wall.
Because there's a movie called The Wall coming out, I thought, right? It takes place, it's in Afghanistan or something?
Maybe it's The Great Wall. Again,
you're talking about the one where it's like the Great Wall, but monsters attacking, but Matt Damon is like coming there to save everybody.
They completely whitewashed the lead actor.
I mean, I guess it's not like it's a nonfiction story, so it's not like they can make the argument. I don't know. But yeah, oh my god.
Anyway, so movie aside, they were uploading these HDR images. I'm like, oh my god, this is incredible. I gotta get one of these TVs. But I wasn't gonna do it without selling my old TV. So I sold the TV. I went to Best Buy after contemplating for an hour, and I went back to Best Buy. Okay. I decided on the 8000 series 50-inch, which was a downgrade, actually a 49-inch, which was a downgrade in size from the 55 inches. Not a jarring difference, but you can definitely tell.
Yeah, it's not the size of the screen; it's the quality of the picture that matters.
Exactly. That's exactly what I said, Andrew Stokes. And so I'm all excited. I start getting this set up. I already got the 4K Blu-ray player. I want to pop Logan in and see how it works. Well, first of all, it's hell to get my Bose soundbar to work with it.
Yeah.
This is all complete first world bullshit. So tune out if you have real problems, please.
Please skip to the end of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
For actual problems in the world.
However, the Bose soundbars are so annoying because they don't have a video interface and they don't have any buttons on the front of the soundbar. It's just the sound bar, and they have inputs in the back, and the remote's a pain in the butt. They sound great, but as far as getting it to work with new equipment, but I was like, I'll just plug it up to the optical cable, no big deal. I called Samsung, they connected me to Bose, they were closed, I troubleshot it, I finally figured out how to get it working. I just used red and white, and then I used optical to my 4K Blu-ray player. This is where it gets really interesting, Andrew.
Do you call a lot of places like this?
Not usually. I try to troubleshoot it online.
I'm definitely one of those people. Like that's the last thing. I must have a sound system that's been sitting there for a week not being used before I'm gonna call somebody. I feel like I'm all over the internet. I'm looking up YouTube videos.
I'm not a handyman. Okay,
sure.
But
yeah, me either.
When it comes to this kind of stuff, I know it fairly well.
Sure.
I usually can figure it out on my own because I follow it. It's a hobby of mine. Yeah. But I have good equipment, so I hadn't upgraded anything in years. So there's a learning curve to this new equipment. But I had a Blu-ray player, Samsung Blu-ray player. However, I got a new HDMI cord for it when we went to Best Buy.
Gotcha.
It would not fit in the HDMI slot. I mean, I felt like an idiot. I put 1,000. I mean, obviously that's hyperbole, but I put so many HDMI cords in.
Yeah.
Because everything's HDMI for the past like 5 years or so. So I said to Abby, see if you can try to get this in. She tried. She couldn't get it in either. Yeah. And so finally, I'm getting pissed off, man. Like I'm sweating. I finally got the soundbar working, so it's getting like 8:30. I know Best Buy is gonna close. I'm like, something's wrong here. So I go up there. The Geek Squad guy comes up. I'm like, he's gonna get this thing and first try and make me look like an idiot. He can't get it in either.
Yeah.
And then he calls a lady up there. She can't get in the HDMI cable either. So she says, let's just try another cord because this is an HDR cord. And this is an HDR 4K Blu-ray player because you gotta have. There's different cords as far as a 4K versus 4K HDR. It's like a 1.4 HDMI or 1.3 versus a 2.2 HDMI cord. Mm-hmm. So they're like, let's just try a regular HDMI cord, which is gonna do me absolutely no good because it's not gonna give me the picture I want. It fit right in there.
Yeah.
So they're like, here's what we'll do. We're gonna give you a new cord. We're going to give you a new Samsung player, and we're going to make sure it works before you leave. I mean, what great customer service, right? Yeah. And they swapped everything out. I go home. Get everything hooked up. HDMI is perfectly fine. I get to play Logan. Mm-hmm. Then I try Arrival, which is the other 4K Blu-ray player I bought.
Oh, okay. Did you watch Arrival?
I haven't watched it yet. You'll find out why here in a second. Okay. So I hit play. It's freezing up. freezing up. So I'm troubleshooting. I'm looking online. I get 3 blinking red lights, which looks like a failed system, pretty much.
Right.
So it's kind of like the 3 red rings of death on the Xbox. If you have 3 blinking red lights on a Samsung product, it means there's a manufacturer problem, defect. So I called back.
Yeah.
I got the best lady ever at the Samsung customer service. I mean, she tried everything to troubleshoot it.
Came to your house.
No, not that, but...
Talked to that guy on Craigslist for you.
Yeah. Turns out it was a defect, so I got to take it back again the next day. End up settling on the LG instead. Because I'm like, I'm not buying a Samsung again. Plus, the LG is the only 4K Blu-ray player out that's going to do Dolby Vision, which is going to be like Disney's 4K. It's basically their HDR. 4K HDR TV will do Dolby Vision. It's just something different that Disney shoots in. So I was like, let's be future-proof. I had to pay like $40 more.
So the TV does it fine. It's a system.
It's
the
the
Samsung
player.
wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, why not be future-proof?
Right.
So I bought it. I got everything hooked up.
How much more was it?
It was like $40 more. I think the retail was $300. It was on sale for $270, which is a lot for a Blu-ray player. But I mean, it's a new product, so it is what it is. So I get home with the LG player. I'm like, all right, it's gonna work this time, right?
Yeah.
It's just basically snow. Like there's no cable signal in 1980 or something. Like, what the hell? And so I'm looking online. I find nothing with this troubleshooting it. So if I got to call Samsung again. And I usually don't call these type of lines, especially with electronics. Just something I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'll call them. But I feel like I know a little bit about like electronics. So basically, it needed to reset. So I had to do the most generic thing. Unplug everything from the wall. Wait 2 minutes. And it worked. The sound bar works. I got everything finally working.
Just hope you don't have a power outage anytime soon.
Yeah, me too. The picture on this thing is insane.
Okay.
It lives up to all the shots I saw online. It lives up to the HDR hype. There's not a monumental jump from 1080p to 2160, which is 4K.
Right.
But when you go to HDR, you can tell the difference. So you and I, we used to go buy Blu-rays and stuff. We'd go to Best Buy. We'd go to Circuit City. We'd go Black Friday shopping. A lot of us would. You remember when they started doing the Auto Motion Plus thing?
Yeah.
Where it had the kind of the soap opera effect?
Yeah.
And I remember the first time we saw that. We were at like Circuit City in Gastonia.
Yeah.
Remember this?
Rest in peace.
And you remember what was playing on
It
the
was
screen?
Fantastic Four.
Yes, it was. It was Fantastic Four. And we saw this, and it was like a 60-inch TV or something, and our jaws dropped. We're like, this is like, I remember exactly what you said. You said, this is like looking through a window, seeing these people.
Yeah.
And it was, and I immediately wanted one of those. But the more research I did and the more I thought about it, I was like, well, this isn't the natural way of the picture.
Right.
Because this is not how the filmmaker intended it to look.
I specifically remember watching that. It's the scene on the bridge. Was it a bus falling off or something? And somebody's like hanging off, or the car's hanging off, and you see the water underneath, like looking down off the bridge, and so obvious that water is not real.
Yeah,
like,
definitely makes CG stand out. More.
Absolutely. Like, it looked fine in the regular film, but in this, it's like, oh, like these. It's almost like it's almost like if instead of like when they were filming, they didn't have a green screen, but they had some sort of screen playing this ocean effect or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you just filmed that. Like, that's what it looked like. It was crazy.
Exactly. So those TVs back then were like 60 hertz. It basically was like watching a movie 60 frames per second, where it sped it up to that. Yeah. Where a traditional movie is 24 frames per second. This TV does 240 hertz, and you can turn that on. So I'm like, I'm just going to turn it on just to see what it looks like. I mean, it literally looks like they're right there. Right. I showed it to Abby. She's like, I'm not going to be able to tell a difference. She's like, wow, this is crazy. I can tell a difference. But I don't know if you want that difference. Right. How do you feel about people? I hear a lot of people who get these TVs, especially older people. I mean, hell, I'm getting old. I'm 30 now, but, you know,
oh, God,
people like our parents' age.
Yeah.
they like this effect.
Do they?
A lot of people do. I read a lot of like Blu-ray forums and AVS forums, and now this home theater enthusiast group.
I watched Good Will Hunting with I think a 120 refresh rate or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like watching a play. It was interesting. Like it was different.
I guess it's cool to know you have the option. Now, when you turn that on sports,
yeah,
that's when you tell a difference as far as the smoothness of the image. Like I turned on the Seattle Carolina game I had on my DVR, and I turned on the 240 refresh rate. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I mean, like, they move like, it looked like silk. It was so smooth.
Yeah. And
like the NHL playoffs, hockey's a fast game.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with the puck.
Yeah.
But on this TV, you can really keep up with the puck. This TV was retailed $1,300. It was on sale for $1,000, which was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Especially with the Blu-ray player. But when I buy stuff like this, I don't want to go with like the cheapest thing available. And when I say cheap, I don't necessarily mean Vizio. I mean, you see people who get these Hisense and Polaroid, and I mean, you can afford what you can afford. I'm not knocking anybody, but if you're big into home theater, you want to make an investment, and it's really going to be LG, Samsung, or Sony. And I really debated between this and the Sony, but I'm happy with it. I only got to watch an hour of Logan, unfortunately. I wanted to go back and revisit it for our review. That was a long segment of what we've been checking out. I'm sorry. I had to vent my frustrations just a little bit. So let's go ahead and get into the epic news items for this week. Let's start out with some confirmed epic podcast news, which is our 1960s summer showdown for the icons of cinema. And we had Mary Poppins take round 1. And we had Sean Connery Bond take round 2.
You want to explain why there were 2 rounds?
Yeah, I do. Because Twitter polls only let you have 4 options. So we had a total of 6. And then we agreed that's what we wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So I kind of went through based on our conversation and seeded it like you would in the NFL playoffs or something. And in round 1, I put Mary Poppins up against, I'm trying to remember who it was now. It was Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Who else was it in round 1?
I don't remember the first one.
I'm trying to
remember Hal and Mary Poppins.
Again, we don't have internet off the top of our head. Round 2, Sean Connery took it. He beat The Man with No Name and Audrey Hepburn from Breakfast at Tiffany's. I got a lot of flack from my wife for not picking Maria from Sound of Music.
In my defense, I argued for her. So
exactly, and I did note that to my wife. But the finals here, and you got a week to vote on it. I'm going to post it tonight, probably right after I post this podcast. Is going to be Mary Poppins versus Sean Connery Bond. So go vote there. Go to @TheRealBradBell on Twitter. Of course, Andrew will retweet that link as well. I kind of thought about changing it here as far as 6 like we were doing, but maybe at the end of each of these episodes we throw in 1 wild card each, so 2 wild cards. What do you think? Too much?
How do we determine a wild card?
It's just any pick we want, we throw it.
How's it different than our lock?
I guess that's not different. I was thinking it would be somebody we previously negotiated off together.
Atticus Finch.
Atticus Finch, who I would wanted to win, only got 13% of the vote.
James Bond clearly won poll 2. It was close between Hal and Mary Poppins.
Yeah, Hal was the early favorite. He was leading for the first day and a half of that poll. Then Mary Poppins swooped in on her umbrella and just took that thing over.
I voted for Hal and I voted for the Man with No Name.
So there's a lot of stuff coming up in the next couple weeks. Next week's episode, we hope to review Wonder Woman. I want to review House of Cards Season 5 if you get time to watch that.
I'm not sure I'll watch it. I don't know how I feel about reviewing it, but we can. I don't like reviewing TV shows.
It's tough. And then, so it may be a couple weeks before we get back to the 70s. But
it may be December.
No, it will not, because the download numbers on this.
On 60s?
Yeah, we're really good. It was number 1 for the past 2 weeks. It's been
in the whole world, out of all podcasts,
in all of iTunes. No, on the Geeks Worldwide Radio Network. So I was proud of that. And I think as time goes on, as we get to people that are characters that people are more familiar with, probably a lot more response and hopefully a lot more listeners. So the 70s will do it in 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, let's get into some real epic news here.
Okay.
All
I
right.
think, personally, the first thing that I'd like to mention,
Go ahead.
currently, as of this recording, Wonder Woman sits at a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And I had that in the show notes, but
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it up. I didn't know if we wanted to wait till next week.
I think it's worth mentioning. We haven't seen it yet, obviously. It's, I'm going to go see it this Friday. You're seeing it
Sunday.
right.
Just cause schedule and stuff.
Right.
And we'll review it next Thursday. That'll be next week's episode of the podcast, episode 64.
I'm just picturing sitting there and like the Warner Brothers home office or something, mission accomplished sign on there. They took it from the aircraft carrier.
Are you a lot more stoked now that the reviews are in?
I'm pretty excited. Like I said, I thought this Suicide Squad I was anticipating because it looked like something different. You know what I mean?
It was your number one movie for that summer.
Right, it looked like it had potential to be good. You know what I mean? This one, I look at it, I'm like, oh, this feels like it's going to be good. You know what I mean? Suicide Squad was more of a question mark, and this one's kind of a question mark because all the other ones haven't been good, all these other DC films. Like, looking at Wonder Woman in the trailers and stuff we've seen, it looks like it has the style of a DC film, like this kind of dark style, but it seems to kind of have that heart of a Marvel film. There's action, and there's some comedy, and there's some charm there.
I was nervous about it, man. Wonder Woman.
I was nervous about it. I'm a little nervous. I mean, still, Rotten Tomatoes isn't everything. You know what I mean? The number changes, and critical opinion doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Unless
but it's
we say it, of course.
Yeah, our critical opinion does. But it's a good sign, though. You know what I mean? It's a good sign that this is getting all this positive buzz.
I'm just glad it dropped 2% below The Dark Knight because I was a little worried it was going to match its 94% there and be the best
review. It could still go up, man.
It could, but generally they kind of hold steady between.
Right.
It was 96 for a long time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect it to drop below 92 or 91.
Yeah.
By no means. I'm excited for it. Wonder Woman's my wife's favorite superhero. We've been anticipating this movie for a long time, ever since it was announced. We love Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman.
Chris Pine, too.
Chris Pine's in this, too.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's a World War I film as well. You don't see many of those. It's mostly stuff set in World War II. Mm-hmm. The thing that has me a little nervous going in, we can address this next week, is how good can an origin movie be? Because if you think of these geek properties and even these well-reviewed superhero films, it's usually the best ones have been, with the exceptions of Guardians of the Galaxy, the best ones have usually been the sequels, the high-rated ones. X-Men 2.
With the exception of Guardians of the Galaxy?
I'm saying Guardians of the Galaxy had a high-rated sequel, but most people agree that the original is the superior film.
Oh, really? I don't.
Really? I like the second one better, but I think the consensus is the first one's the original,
really?
the better.
That's
film.
not what I've heard from people. Everyone I've talked to loved that second one.
I did too.
More than the first one.
We reviewed it. I gave it an epic rating, but
I mean, just because the second one's better doesn't mean.
But just think about this.
Yeah.
Okay, X-Men 2.
Yeah, I like X-Men 1 better.
Really?
Yeah.
You're in the minority.
I'm in the minority there.
Spider-Man 2.
But also, I'm not sure I'd call X-Men an origin film. Like, it's the first one, but it's like the team's already formed. We're just adding Wolverine and Rogue.
I'm just trying to think of the best and most critically acclaimed superhero movies. How many of them were the first origin movie? Spider-Man 2 wasn't.
Right.
Okay, so...
But again, Spider-Man 1 was good.
It was good.
Batman Begins, good.
The Dark Knight.
I like Batman Begins more.
I know, but you're in the minority on that as well.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say the first ones are the best.
The Avengers, you had multiple films building up to. I guess you had one film building up to this, you could say, with Gal Gadot being in BVS. Even though it may be hard to call that a film. No, I don't hate BVS as much as everybody else, but I don't know. Origin stories always just bother me. Not because I don't think they're going to be good. It's just we've seen superhero origins done to death.
But it's specific superhero origins.
Like Peter Parker. We've
right,
seen
and
Batman.
Bruce Wayne, yeah. But like this is something different. Like, how many people know Wonder Woman's origin story?
Not
you know
many.
What I mean?
And there's different takes on it,
50% of the audience is going to be going there waiting for the invisible jet to show up. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm excited for it. It's going to be something different.
Yeah, I want to talk about so many of the political aspects too to this.
Oh, but the Warner Brothers trying to truncet rumor or whatever.
Let's wait. Yeah. Let's save that for next week. All right, let's talk
or
about.
Never talk about it.
Let's talk about some epic news here. We're gonna talk about it next week.
Oh God.
Okay, the Jetsons.
Never heard of it.
There is a new animated Jetsons feature film on the way, and it is coming by way of director Conrad Vernon, who directed the raunchy Sausage Party last summer, which I did not see. Did you see Sausage Party?
I want to.
Which is surprising. We both love that kind of troupe of comedians, the Seth Rogen group.
It made my top 10 most anticipated.
But it never made. You never made it to the theater to see it.
I never made it to the theater to see it, and it's on one of my queues. I don't know, Netflix or Amazon or something. It's on one of those that I want to see, and people really seem to have liked it.
Yeah, people love it. It's nasty, everybody says, but it's supposed to be.
Right, that's what I expected out of it.
Before You Panic, he also directed Monsters vs. Aliens as well as Madagascar 3, so it's not like...
Which I think most people think is the best Madagascar, I think.
Really?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I think most people think the first Madagascar
I've never seen
the
any
best.
of those.
Really? Never seen the first one?
No, I've seen
first one's pretty good.
This is what that show, the Penguin show, spun off of, right? With the lemur or something, with like the king lemur thing.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of that. Like my nephew was really into that when he was younger, so I've seen
that. Sounds awful.
I don't remember it being particularly enjoyable or particularly non-enjoyable. It was just kind of a thing that was on. It wasn't awful.
Okay, so the Jetsons animated film on the way. Yeah. This is a property as a kid I really liked. My parents took me to see the original 1990 Jetsons movie in the theater. We went to Paramount Carowinds a lot because that was a local theme park.
Right.
And they had the Hanna-Barbera theme for the kids section of the park. You saw a lot of Flintstones and Jetsons and whatnot. So I was very familiar with the characters, even though they were really big in like the 60s, I think, when the Jetsons came out. I didn't realize it was that long ago, but Hanna-Barbera goes way back.
Way back.
So are you excited for a Jetsons movie at all?
Well, there's a Jetsons movie that just came out.
What?
Yeah, it's like a direct-to-home video WWE crossover. They find the Big Show, swear to God, frozen in ice. they unfreeze him. And
Did you watch it?
No, I've seen the commercial for it. Again, I just went to Raw. They showed a trailer for it. They find the Big Show frozen in ice. He wakes up in the future. He's like, all right, I'm going to go back to WWE because that's what you do. I guess when you wake up in the future, go back to work. But WWE, they've all been replaced with robots because apparently in the future they spell robots with a silent W, so it's still WWE World of Robot Entertainment or something. And so he goes in there, he destroys all the robots and inspires it. This is what real wrestling is. It's about humans, and becomes like the champion. And then, so for some reason, I don't know, they go back in time and they run into like Sheamus and Vince McMahon and.
But is it like Sid and the Jetsons universe?
Yeah, it's all the Jetsons.
Like the
Jetsons are with them. They go back in time with them. They're the ones that find the Big
Show. Live action Jetsons?
No, it's not live action. This is a cartoon.
Okay. Yeah. I thought it was a live action thing. I was like, I gotta see.
That'd be crazy.
There was the Kanye West thing. There was like a commercial or something. There was a live action Jetsons commercial where it showed kind of the super high rises above the Earth's atmosphere and stuff. And there was a lot of interest and rumors about a live-action Jetsons film. And Kanye West actually mentioned something about wanting to maybe direct and star in a Jetsons movie. Can you imagine him and Kim as George and Judy Jetson?
No, I cannot.
What a show that would be. I bet it would make a lot of money. Then he could become president, too.
All right.
And then we'd be better off. No.
Maybe for 2020 we have West versus Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to be that excited for this news. It's not a property that I'm absolutely in love with. Yeah. I remember also enjoying the Jetsons Meet the Flintstones, which was like an 80s thing. And I was trying.
The little Martian guy is the one that brought them together? The little Martian guy was with Fred.
Yeah. So I wanted to do some research on this because I didn't know if that was like a feature film that was released in theaters, because the Jetsons movie 1990 was, but it was just like a made-for-TV movie. But I remember as a kid, that is a big deal when you see George Jetson meet Fred Flintstone.
Sure.
So I'm excited for this.
I've seen about property crossovers lately.
Yeah, no word.
Those are they're both from the same creators or same Same company owns them. So
No word yet on when this is going to be out. There's no timetable. We'll post it on the epicreview.com when we find out.
Do you remember the live-action Flintstones movie that came out?
Oh, yeah. That John Goodman was Fred.
Halle Berry was in it.
Yeah. Who was Mr. Slade? He was somebody famous, too, at the time. Rosie O'Donnell was not... Let's see. There's Fred and Wilma, and then Barney and Betty.
Betty, yeah, I think so.
So I remember Rosie O'Donnell was Betty.
Okay.
So
who was Wilma? Was anybody...
I don't know if it was anybody who was in particular famous of that time period. That was a big movie.
Oh, what's his face was Barney.
Who was it?
It was what's this guy?
It's not Jeff Daniels, is it?
No.
Well, while you think about that, I'm going to reference what McDonald's did. Do you remember the McDonald's tie-in?
Yeah.
That's when they brought the McRib from what I understand, was a thing in the 80s. But they brought it back as a promotional thing with the Flintstones movie.
Yeah.
And that's when it really took off. The McRib did and became like a thing they bring back every year or every couple of years. So I definitely remember that and falling in love with McRib and becoming a really overweight child as a result of my fascination with fast food and cinema tie-ins. Rick Moranis.
That's his name, yeah.
Ghostbusters, A Little Shop of
That was
Horrors.
Barney. I remember that scene where they're adopting Bam Bam.
It was a good movie.
I remember enjoying it as a kid for sure. Like,
what's
his name?
Sequel?
Bam Bam. Was that short for something? Bam Bam Bam. I just remember that.
The Flintstones
was
comic.
there a sequel? I don't remember.
I don't know, but there's a Flintstones comic from IDW.
Oh yeah, that new one.
And it's supposed to be like incredible. I read the first issue; it was great. I just couldn't justify adding it to my pull list because I was getting so much. But it makes a lot of political statements in there.
Well, I like those kind of crossovers though, like Flintstones, Jetsons. I like crossovers like that.
Yeah, crossovers that make sense. And speaking of crossovers that make sense, let's talk about Godzilla vs. Kong, who is found as director in Adam Wingard, who is the gentleman who directed You're Next, which is a horror film that you really enjoyed.
Yeah.
It's been a while, so I don't recall it shot for shot, but I remember really enjoying it. It kind of came out of nowhere. It was Warner Brothers. It was a very low-budget horror film.
Tongue-in-cheek.
He also directed The Guest, which is his more known work. I've not seen The Guest. Have you seen it?
Which was this?
Exactly. I mean, I'm not familiar with it at all, so I couldn't tell you. Also, Silicon Valley star Thomas Middleditch has been brought in to star in this film. He's the guy who's on all these Verizon commercials, and he's a really famous comedian. His Twitter account is freaking hilarious. Like, my wife gets updates when he tweets because every tweet is like comedic gold. I enjoy him on Silicon Valley, but I didn't see Kong Skull Island. Did you?
Yeah.
You did? And we both saw Godzilla because we reviewed that on the podcast.
Yeah.
So coming out of Kong Skull Island, which I want to review later when that comes out on Blu-ray.
Okay.
Are you excited for this at all?
I'm not sure necessarily because of Kong or because of Godzilla, I guess, but I'm excited for just to see what they do.
I'm excited for this director because I think if you could maybe bring in some of these more intimate horror elements, like instead of focusing so much, I know everybody wants to see the monsters, and God knows I complained enough about not seeing Godzilla in that Godzilla movie, but if you focus on the horror of, this is coming.
Yeah.
As the attack reaches closer, as it's happening, seeing families kind of torn apart, like the horrific elements of that.
Nobody wants to see that.
Well, I mean, especially now, everybody wants to go to the movies to escape our dark
see
timeline.
Godzilla versus King Kong. That's what people complain about the first Transformers.
What about it?
They was focused too much on the humans and not enough on the Transformers and stuff.
They complain that about every Transformers
But they
movie.
love Transformers.
People love Transformers. Are we going to review that movie?
No.
Okay.
I'm not going to see that movie. I can't, in good conscience, keep putting money towards that property.
Okay, so this film comes out in 2019. It was originally slated for 2020. They moved it up to March 22nd,
All right.
2019. So it'll be here sooner rather than later. I'm going to see Kong on Blu-ray. Hopefully we can talk about it when it comes out in like July, toward the end of July. So the 4K, for pre-order was like $45. I'm like, I'm not pre-ordering this. Of course, it'll be cheaper when it comes out, but
hopefully
they put these things at astronomical pre-orders. Speaking of Transformers, let's get into the last bit of epic news here, and that is that Haley Steinfeld has been rumored to be linked to the Bumblebee spinoff film. Apparently, she's Paramount's favorite to lead this film. Haley Steinfeld is more known for her music career now, but she kind of burst onto the scene as the young lady in True Grit.
Okay.
She was a big part of Pitch Perfect 2. She's very well known. She's seen as maybe... I kind of put her in that... Not quite Michael B. Jordan territory, but everything she's been in, she's been great.
Yeah.
But she hasn't really taken that next step. She has in music. She's really well known. Whatever single she had was one of the top in 2016. So, a Bumblebee spinoff movie. So, let's talk about this. Are you excited for this at all?
No.
I hold out a little hope.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why.
All right.
Steinfeld, I think she could be an interesting lead. It'd be interesting to see a female lead in a Transformers movie. One that doesn't have the personality of cardboard. Also, is who has been chosen to direct this film. Travis Knight, who directed Kubo and the Two Strings, which was an Academy Award nominated animated film that had a ton of heart. And when I think of Transformers who have heart, I think of Bumblebee. He has been one of the, as this franchise has continued to make billions of dollars across the globe, but critically deteriorated, he's been one of the parts that when I watch these movies, I see a little humility and actually enjoy his character, which sucks. They're probably going to kill him last night based on the trailer. Remember the first Transformers movie? There was something special, that bond between Sam and Bumblebee.
Yep.
His first car, he had to get all A's to get that car. I mean, we loved the first Transformers movie.
Yeah.
Looking back, was it an epic movie? I don't know. You'd have to really revisit that and talk about it down the line. But if they could capture that kind of car bond that Sam had with Sam Witwicky, played by the great Shia LaBeouf, had with Bumblebee in that first film, this is something I'd want to see. Why are you not excited for this? Because this seems to be separate. It's not going to be Michael Bay directing. It's separate from these what's become basically atrocities. But they make for good podcasts based on our review of, I don't even remember, Age of Extinction.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately, it was not.
Can they not? No, it was not. Can they do nothing to get you back to the theater?
Yeah, I mean, they can put out,
to get you excited.
They can put out a trailer for a movie that looks good, and then when it comes out, they can do well critically. And I think that'll do it.
There needs to be a smaller Transformers film. I love high stakes.
I don't know. I mean, I think they just gotta take it a different direction, man.
What would you like to see?
I don't even know. I really don't. But like the Transformers Prime cartoon was good. I like the Transformers franchise in general.
You're probably a bigger fan of it than I am.
They just need to go. I don't know. They just cut Michael Bay loose. I'm just not. I'm not even that much of a Michael Bay hater. I just don't like what he's done with this franchise.
Me, I like Michael. I like The Island. I like The Rock. I love Armageddon. I love Bad Boys 1. I really like Bad Boys 2.
Pain and Gain.
I didn't really like that
really?
movie.
Really?
We reviewed that. I don't know if we did a podcast. I definitely did a written review of it, which you can find in the...
That might be my favorite Michael Bay movie, Pain and Gain.
Movie review vault at thepicreview.com. But I didn't...
13 Hours, have you seen that?
No, is that the Benghazi movie?
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch that.
Yeah, it was good.
That was one of Adam Dixon's favorite movies from 2016, and he references it often in political conversations. So shout out to Adam Dixon.
It was actually considerably tempered, I guess. Like it was more so like really heavy-handed. These are our people who sacrifice themselves, and it was just. I don't know.
I mean, Michael Bay is a military guy. He wears his patriotism on the sleeve wholeheartedly.
It's an enjoyable movie, but I'd rather watch that again than Transformers 2 for sure.
Wow, that's saying something.
Is it?
No, it's not really saying that at all. I just want to see a smaller story. I want to see a bond between a car and a character.
Sure.
And if they can do
Yeah,
that...
and that's the thing. They just need to pare down all these, like, a billion Transformers coming out of the woodwork that all look essentially the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially the bad guys. Like, it's
I
just...
really want to review Last Night
my
so
God.
bad because I know that podcast would be... That podcast had a bunch of downloads. Like
Which one? The Extinction?
Age of Extinction, yeah. Like, I mean, I know it had up around over 500 downloads.
Okay.
So it would be interesting to review
Last
Night.
If you want to hear a Last Night podcast, donate, I don't know, $10 to the Epic Review, and that'll pay
That's
for my
true.
ticket.
If you donate $10, I'm paying for my ticket. So let's just say, how much is a matinee usually? $7.50, $6.50?
Yeah, they're getting up there now.
All right, let's say $7.
Okay.
If we get $7 donated
All right.
to our PayPal tab, we will do a review of. I'll give the money to Andrew,
Okay.
and we'll do a review of Transformers: The Last Night.
But also know if you donate that money, you're probably an awful person because this money is going towards the Transformers
Don't
franchise.
say that. Anybody that donates money is a great person. Thank you, Bob Reed. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our featured review of this podcast, which is James Mangold's Logan.
Logan.
That was from the trailer for Logan, which came out March 3rd, 2017. Both you and I saw it in theaters, but we did not have an opportunity to sit down together and review it on the Confirmed Epic podcast.
Too busy watching other movies.
It was considered one of the best things of 2017 in general.
Yeah.
In art.
Yeah.
Not just superhero movies or movies as a whole, but one of the best pieces of art when you're talking music, movies, television of 2017. It's interesting enough that the FX show Legion is also the same thing, but I think you kind of have a feeling about this, Andrew Stokes. Go ahead and interject.
No, I just I've said to you, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast that 2017 is kind of a year of overrated things, and I feel like the two things you just mentioned are both fit in that category.
Let's not rate them though. Because,
okay. Right,
Legion, you can say whatever you want, but as far as like Logan, let's save it for the end.
Yeah, I'm not gonna rate it. But I mean, Logan. I mean, I will say I enjoyed Logan very much. You know what I mean?
I think most people did.
Yeah, I just like before seeing it in theaters. I'm pretty sure I saw it opening weekend, but it was like maybe I saw it on Sunday. Going like, oh, all these people, oh my, it's amazing, it's great, it's this, it's that.
It's the Dark Knight,
right?
The new Dark Knight.
Yeah, and it's a really good movie. I'm not sure it's that good. Like,
And that's why we're doing this podcast. So let's go through some stats of this film.
Okay.
It hit Blu-ray May 23rd, which is why we're reviewing it.
Yep.
Limited edition black and white release that.
The Noir edition.
The Noir edition, which was released with the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Even if you don't even have to get the 4K Blu-ray, you can get the normal one and it still comes in there along with the digital copy. However, the Alamo Drafthouse Theater did a limited release of it along with a poster, which is pretty cool. It's nothing to write home about. But I thought that decision to release this Western type feeling film in black and white was pretty cool. I haven't watched it in black and white yet.
Yeah. From what I hear, it's pretty obvious that they had black and white in mind when they were filming this.
Yeah.
Like supposedly it was, it doesn't look poorly lit when watching it in black and white.
Oh, no. Like the stills, and one is going to be used as the feature image from this podcast, looked absolutely stunning. So I'm definitely going to check that out sometime probably this summer when I have a little bit more time on my hands. You mentioned critical success, how many people love this film. Critics also love this film. It garnered a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is you and I were just talking. That's exactly what Wonder Woman sits at now.
Yeah.
To have any superhero movie in that range, it's usually something pretty special.
Yeah.
Movie made a ton of money for an R-rated film, especially.
Yeah.
$607.5 million worldwide. 226 of that was domestic. $88.4 million opening weekend. First weekend of March, R-rated movie. Fox had to be absolutely ecstatic about that. Now, I'm just going to say from the get-go, there's going to be spoilers for this review because it came out in March. We're doing kind of a home video review, not of the actual picture quality or sound or anything, but of the film. So spoilers for Logan starting now. If you have not seen Logan, I think most people probably who listen to this podcast have seen Logan.
Yeah.
So you have been warned. So let's go ahead and get into this, Andrew. As far as Wolverine as a character, won't you tell our listeners how you feel, if they don't already know?
The movie character, or...
I'm talking about the character in general, and then we can differentiate between that and the movie character.
I'm one of these people that's a little sick of Wolverine, I feel like, in the comics, just because he's everywhere.
When's the last time you read an X-Men comic?
Not since I started putting Wolverine in all of them. I can't remember the last time I actually read an X-Men comic.
I'm reading Resurrection, so I'm kind of up to date on what's going on.
That Joss Whedon run was probably the
Astonishing
newest.
X-Men.
They
pushed Wolverine hard in that book. I remember that. But I love that run because I love Wolverine. You're more of a Cyclops guy.
Yeah.
And is that kind of your, I don't want to say hatred, you don't hate Wolverine. Is that kind of why you don't prefer Wolverine?
I guess, yeah, I don't dislike Wolverine. Wolverine's cool.
Yeah.
He's just overused, I feel like. He's kind of like Batman. He's just overused, in my opinion.
There was, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, a lot of oversaturation of Wolverine. Obviously love Wolverine's top 5 favorite hero. I'd probably go, let's see, off the top of my head, Batman, Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, then probably Wolverine.
Wow.
As my 5th favorite superhero, so I'm a big fan. But let's differentiate the Hugh Jackman incarnation of Wolverine.
Yeah.
Obviously, no actor probably, maybe Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man, maybe Patrick Stewart, Professor X, who's also in this film, is more synonymous with a character as far as a superhero film than Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. So as far as his portrayal of this character, have you been a fan of it through the years?
Yeah, movie Wolverine, yeah.
You know Russell Crowe was who they wanted for Wolverine, and he ended up turning it down, and Hugh Jackman was their second choice. I mean, imagine how Russell Crowe feels at this point. I'm glad. I love Jackman. There was a lot of criticism that he was 6'2", he was too big to be Wolverine.
Yeah,
he's been Wolverine for like 10 movies or something crazy, and he gets the timing, he gets the assholishness of Wolverine quite well, gets that across. So let's go ahead and get in to Logan here. Did you ever, and I say get in, I gotta give you one more opening question here. Did you ever read the Old Man Logan comic?
No.
I read it. It's by Mark Millar, Steve McNiven, one of my favorite comic book artists. Incredible story, but it's a very Marvel story. It involves Hawkeye, it involves the Hulks, it involves Venom, it involves a lot of stuff that copyright-wise or rights-wise, licensing-wise, that Fox just couldn't do because of what Disney owns and what they do not own. So this is definitely an adaptation of that story. Again, let's preface this review. I watched an hour of it this week. You didn't get to revisit the film.
I haven't seen it since it originally came out, I think opening weekend.
But whether you loved it as much as everybody else did or not, it is a film that sticks with you, especially with the ending. So your initial thoughts on this film are that it's overrated. Is that just based on audiences kind of clamoring over it and loving it so much, or is there something specifically?
No, I just think it's a little. I don't think it's that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, it is really good. It's not that overrated. It's just kind of like it didn't quite live up to the hype. I don't feel.
Okay. As far as the R rating of the film, most of these Wolverine movies, all of them have been PG-13. Fox went a different direction. They took a financial risk. Of course, a lot of that had to do with the success of Deadpool.
Right.
Do you feel the R-ratedness of this film come through?
Yeah.
You do. The language, there's the F-bombs,
language,
the GD.
the blood and violence.
Right away.
Let's
talk about the opening of that film where
Yeah.
those gangsters try to come up and basically steal Wolverine. He's a limousine driver. He's living out in the desert with Caliban, who is a mutant they brought in who can track other mutants. Caliban was a real big mutant in the early 2000s. He was a member of the Horsemen of Apocalypse. And they're hiding Professor X.
Yeah.
Because something happened called the Westchester incident, which we're not privy to really understand what happened. But it was a tragedy that led to Professor X basically killing a whole bunch of mutants at the school, based on our understanding.
Implied the X-Men.
Were you upset that they didn't show the Westchester incident? Would you rather them have started with that and then maybe have said 10 years later and we get to where we're at in Logan, or were you okay with it not doing that?
I don't know. I never really thought about it. I mean, it'd be cool to see, but it's not necessary to see.
It's not, because the emotion, especially with actor like Patrick Stewart, is conveyed so well.
Yeah.
In movies, I always want it to be shown, not told. But this is a case in which it works fine, just telling.
Because it's not even really told; it's just kind of implied and mentioned. Like I wish to have known more, but it didn't seem necessary for this film for me to know more.
Yeah, and you, like you said, you get the idea of what happened.
Right.
But this opening scene, right away, Wolverine's kind of a limousine driver. He's taking a nap on the job. He gets almost kind of like an Uber limousine driver.
Yeah.
He gets calls. They try to steal this car, and man,
Trying to steal the car, the tires,
the rims. I believe they're trying to steal. And he wakes up. He says, "You don't want to do this."
Yeah.
And then right away, this film establishes the R rating. I mean, it's Wolverine on film like you've only seen in the comic books.
Right.
You're seeing arms get cut off.
Yeah.
You're seeing people straight up killed.
Yeah. I mean, he's stabbed and killed people before, but
you see the blood a lot more than you ever had. And it's like, okay, right away, did you get the feeling that we're in for a different type of Wolverine movie here?
Sure. I mean, it definitely looked like they wanted to use that R rating to their advantage.
And speaking of using that R rating to their advantage, they did that a lot with X-23. She's introduced here. Daphne Keene is the young lady who plays her. So we get to a scene, probably the most memorable action set piece of this film. It's not a heavy action film. Would you agree? There is enough action, but it's not like going 100 miles per hour. Like, I feel like something even like Civil War moves at a much quicker pace than Logan.
Yeah.
But you get to a scene in which X-23, or Daphne Keene's character, which is, I think it's Laura McKinnon as X-23's alter ego. Okay. Her secret identity, if you will, and you will.
Okay.
Anyway, she's brought to the compound where they're keeping Xavier. Yep. And she's followed by basically, I don't want to say the film's main villain, because the villain stuff kind of takes a much different turn. It's Donald Pierce, played by Boyd Holbrook. And you get this just bloodbath with her, even more extreme than what you saw in that opening scene with Wolverine. What do you think the intentions of James Mangold was here to just throw that violence in your face like that?
Well, I think it was to show that this wasn't just an ordinary little girl. You know what I mean? That this was I don't know.
She's a weapon,
right?
And then she was bred to be a weapon.
Yeah,
absolutely, she was, and that comes across right away. And they definitely, how this is shot with the quick cuts and how they really utilize that she has the adamantium in her feet as well. Yeah, just the way she flips and how they capture that. I mean, and the whole escape scene from that compound. It's done really well. They kind of set up the first 20 minutes of the movie does I don't want to say family dynamic, because it's not that, but you have this dynamic with Caliban, Logan, and Charles. They're his caretakers.
Sure. Which it's kind of a family dynamic.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point of the film, I feel like.
And you see
family vibe.
Which you understand the Logan perspective, because Charles found Logan and took him in. Right. So Logan, feels obligated. He's repaying the favor. Sure. Which shows a lot of character growth for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. Caliban's not in any other X-Men film, as far as I think he may have been in Apocalypse, but it was a completely different actor.
No, really?
Yeah, and this is played by Stephen Merchant. He did a great job as Caliban. How'd you feel about that character? Did it feel generic, or was it?
No, he was cool.
He was memorable.
Yeah.
You know what I remember most about Caliban is the interrogation
Yeah.
that Pierce does of him, where they're in like a tent type complex, and he's like cutting parts of the tent, just letting the sun boil Caliban. Because basically you have a split in characters, because you have X-23, Logan, and Xavier off on their way, and they force Caliban, who's a tracker, to hunt them down, and that kind of sets up basically the main journey of our film. So how do you feel that they did a good job with handling ultimately what's going to be the death of a major character in Charles Xavier? Did you feel, and again, we're spoiler free, I mean, we are spoiler driven here, we outlined that before we started this review, but did you feel going through the film, we can talk about Logan later, that this was it for Charles Xavier, like he was going to get the axe here?
I kind of felt that way, yeah. I mean, I wasn't 100% sure, but I kind of felt like that's where this was going, that he was not going to survive this film.
And what a great way that they built toward his death in this film, which was he has Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
He's struggling. Mm-hmm. My grandfather had Alzheimer's. It's a very tragic disease. It's hard to see somebody's mind go, especially somebody that Charles Xavier shot sharp as a tack, one of the most brilliant comic book characters in all of the comics, DC or Marvel.
Yeah.
And to see him struggle like that, and just how Alzheimer's would affect somebody who's this powerful.
Yeah.
Such a powerful telepath, such a brilliant man. And it ultimately wasn't the Alzheimer's that got him.
Yeah.
You have a transition in this film. You think that Pierce is going to be the main bad guy. And I liked Pierce a lot. Mm-hmm. I really did. He had the mechanical arm. He had that almost Cajun type accent. He had a dynamic with these mutants. I remember he tells Caliban, this is from the hour I rewatched, you can tell, he tells Caliban, I studied about you in school. Is it true you track mutants? How cool that this guy has some type of fascination with mutants, and for them to play that up. Yeah. Also, when he's beating the shit out of Wolverine, when he says, this just makes me sad, Wolverine. It's almost like, hey, he had a respect for this guy at some point in his life, and he tells Wolverine, he goes, Wolvie, I'm a fan. Yeah. I just want to find this girl. He's a guy who's a for-hire villain. Yeah. And that's money's his motivation, but I loved him as a villain. Yeah. But they transition it where basically the X-23 people, I guess the government, right? Yeah. Have made what's basically X-24. I don't know if they specifically called it X-24 again, because it's been a while since we both saw this film in its entirety, but it was de-aged Hugh Jackman. Right. With no lines. So it was basically Wolverine versus Wolverine. Yeah, like
Terminator Wolverine.
Exactly, and it did feel very Terminator-esque, just a brooding figure, a force that was kept coming at you. How did you feel about that? Because to me, that's where the film took a tiny step back. There was no personality to this villain.
I mean, I thought it was cool because it's not like he was in charge. Pierce was still in charge. It was just
Pierce was he was sitting in the car, man.
No, I know.
He wasn't doing anything too memorable by the time X-24, which I'll just call him that, even if they didn't call him that. Yeah, kind of went to the forefront of this film.
Yeah, I mean, he was just muscle. You know what I mean? I mean, he was just there for some cool scenes, essentially.
I like the message they were going for. Yeah. Because it's like, the young Wolverine, this is what you could have been if Charles Xavier didn't find you. Sure. And take you in and turn you from an animal to a person. Yeah. And whether you love or hate Wolverine, there's no denying that his character growth between the original movies and then Days of Future Past to this has been really something that's been enjoyable to see over the past 17 years or so.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess.
You don't think? Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I feel like he had the same character growth in this one that they had in the very first one. Because in the very first one, he's helping Rogue out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like taking, and it's like, here's another one that his first film, and here he is with his last film, taking this young girl, helping her out, you know what I mean?
I know you probably hated this, but
All right.
Days of Future Past I thought was probably the most, as far as when he reached his peak character growth, when they sent him back in time. It's not like he was making a sacrifice. His body, with the healing factor, was the only one that can handle Kitty Pryde doing that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He was heroic.
He was straight hero there.
Yeah, and exactly.
Right.
I mean, like, straight up, he's the good guy. You can tell he's leading these younger versions of the X-Men to try to defeat Magneto. I love Days of Future Past. I think it's one of the most underrated superhero films since superhero films have been as hot a property as they have. Let's say MCU or Dark Knight MCU.
Or the first X-Men.
Or the first, but I mean, you had the first X-Men, and you had the Spider-Man movies, but it really wasn't until, I won't even say Batman Begins. I feel like
they started getting big right then and there, and then you started getting, there's the Hulk film as well, Ghost Rider.
I think it was summer 2008 when you had Iron Man in May and Dark Knight in July.
That's when they exploded.
That is mainstream.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
I still feel like X-Men started it.
It did. I mean, it started the whole... I mean, there had been Blade, and it had been a while since there had even been a good Batman movie. It probably was back to Batman Returns in 1992. So, I kind of hated... I knew it was meant to make you hate X-24 or whatever, and I mean, there was nothing to love or hate. He was a nothing character as far as what he was, but how he killed Charles...
Yeah, it was a little unceremonious.
It was
it kind of fit for this movie, maybe, but especially for Charles as an entire character. Like, that's the way he goes out. It's kind of like it was very sudden.
I would have rather seen like Logan have to kill him. That'd have been sad.
Yeah,
but kind of Charles as wishes for Logan to put him down. I do think right before Charles died, Logan got to him and he was able to tell Charles it wasn't him. So that gave me a lot of closure as far as, I don't know, it kind of kept me up at night thinking that he dies and Logan killed him, and of course he's not in the best mind because he has Alzheimer's.
Right.
So kind of the point of the movie is X-23 wants to get to this location, and it's a location in an X-Men comic book.
Yeah.
What do you think about the use of the comic book in this film? Was it too meta for you?
No.
Or
especially because it seems like the X-Men have become this kind of larger than life, kind of what they are in the comics.
If that would have been the first movie, it would have been like, okay, this is cheesy as all get out.
Yeah.
But being around 17 years, this franchise, Fox has earned it, I think.
Yeah, that part of the story...
he tells the girl, this is ice cream for bedwetters. This is bullshit. That's what he tells her. I'm like, dude,
It's an R-rated movie, man. And he's mean to that girl sometimes, man. He says some stuff to her. Yeah, I wish I'd seen it again, because this is a part of the movie that really, to me, was like...
The final act?
The thing about the comic, it was like they wrote about something in the comic, so they were going to this place.
It was in Montana, I believe. It was in a remote...
Didn't exist, or it did exist?
It did exist. It was like...
And it was the exact same place that it was in this comic?
It was like... There was a coordinates in the comic, but I think the coordinates was written down. I don't know if it was something that was actually it wasn't written by the comic book writer. Like
I gotta watch this part.
I believe it was somebody had taken the comic book and written it down and told the mom of X-23,
right,
get her here. Y'all
right, but those coordinates are from the comic.
They were written in the comic.
Right.
Okay, but I don't know
if he realized it's the same coordinates in the comic that are here, that they're...
When I say written, I mean somebody took a comic book and hand wrote it.
Oh, into the comic.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was, this is part of the story. I could be wrong again because I'm just like you. Yeah. I didn't get to that part in my revisit. I hate we didn't. It's just...
I remember that part being pretty wonky.
I don't
mind the comic thing, but it's like... There was something about it story-wise that I was like, wait a minute, so somebody did this, that, and the other thing, and then the villains show up, and they must have done this and that to get here, and it's like... I remember something about that just being like, okay, I'm not sure I'm...
For a film,
I like this aspect of it, but
for a film that this grounded, especially for a superhero movie, I mean, it is kind of making you take an extra step to suspend your disbelief. So
Yeah.
X-23 is experimented on with another group of kids. They meet up in Montana, and they're trying to get to a certain location. So Wolverine gets her there.
Yeah.
And he's wanting to escort the kids to the location.
Yeah.
And man, the ending of this movie, he gave everything for those kids.
Yeah.
And that is where I did see, like, look how far he's come from X1 to now. He's given everything for these kids, only one of which he knows, by the way.
Sure.
And you can't say that X1 Wolverine would have probably done that. He had a connection with
X2,
Rogue.
I feel like he's very much about those kids.
He is. Remember the scene in the school?
Yeah.
And
I
watched. My wife had never seen X2. I'm like, what? One of my favorite superhero movies still to this day. So we went and saw Logan, and after we watched it, we watched X2, which I think is the definitive kind of Logan origin story. Watch X-Men 2. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of dialogue, and I said I like stuff shown, not told. But I think going back to Stryker and the Weapon X program and all that, I think that's dealt with best in X2 as opposed to X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah.
So, which is a just god-awful, atrocious
I need to rewatch
piece
it.
of crap.
I watched it once.
It's so bad it's funny. It's not just downright. You can't watch it. Yeah.
Boring's the worst kind of bad.
It's
in my opinion.
I would watch that before I'd watch any Transformers movies other than the first one, going back to Transformers.
Yeah.
Now, I did not necessarily see this coming. They kill Professor X earlier. We mentioned that.
Yeah.
And Logan dies. Basically, he defeats X-24.
Yeah.
But or evil Logan, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But it takes everything he has, his life, to escort these kids to safety.
Yeah.
And I think I'm all for shots in movies. Like, if a movie's terrible, but it has like Alien Covenant was not the best film. Yeah. But there was one money shot. There was like a couple. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple having sex in the shower.
And, this is the greatest scene in the movie, huh?
It's the most memorable scene as far as the imagery, and I'm not talking about because nudity. So there's a couple in the shower, and it doesn't. I don't even know if it shows any nudity at all. I can't recall. But the woman's head's pressed up against the glass, and all of a sudden you can see the fogging shower. You see the alien there.
That's cool.
And they don't. Yeah. But you do. In that not even 1 minute, that 30-second shot of you seeing the alien, then it just going with his tongue and killing her as her partner's making love to her. Yeah. It is like, that's one of the most memorable shots and scenes from any Alien movie ever. And I rewatched most of them before we went and saw Covenant. And I will forgive a less than stellar movie, which this is not, if it has a memorable shot. The shot where they bury Logan after he's passed, and you can say it's cheesy if you want to. I loved it. I thought it was one of the best scenes in any superhero movie when she takes the cross and turns it sideways for the X. Yeah. And it's just like, wow, this whole thing's come full circle since X-Men, which was 2000, I believe. The first X-Men was. I don't know.
No, I liked it. I don't think it was cheesy at all.
Okay, I was afraid you were gonna say that.
Nah,
so
I think I'm trying to remember who I saw it with. I know my dad and I saw it together. I believe he enjoyed that as well.
Like, I'll remember that scene for the rest of my life. That shot of her taking that cross. That needs to be like a Facebook cover photo. Maybe I'll replace my Twitter Prometheus with them taking the helmets off.
Why is your
Prometheus cover? Not Prometheus. My Twitter cover image, you know.
Is Prometheus?
Yeah, it's them with their helmets off.
Oh my god!
I know. I just did it to mess with you, and you didn't even freaking see it. No. You need to go look at it before I change. I might change it to this. I mean, I really hate that we didn't get to go back. I watched an hour. I hate that we didn't get to revisit the whole thing. I hate we missed reviewing this back in March, but a lot was going on at that time. I love this movie. I absolutely love it. Let's go ahead and rate this.
Okay.
I think
well,
you're
I
not
also
going to be as high on it.
We talked about the introduction to X-24, as we're calling him.
Yeah.
And that was introduced during a scene where Logan and Charles and X-23 are with this family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But they go to help out.
Right, and I think that's kind of important because I think we mentioned it before that family is kind of like an important thread in this film. And I like to think of, I like to think of Logan throughout all these X-Men movies. I remember the first one, which it's been years since I've seen, but he shows up and it seems like he's trying to help out Rogue a little bit. You know what I mean? That she's pulling on his heartstrings a little bit, but he's also maybe there to kind of get with Jean Grey, like, oh, who's this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like to think throughout these films that it's kind of part of how he measures